Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with the winner of Ultimate Mat Warriors 5, Dan Martinez. Now, true or false, did I or did I not tell you today that it was only a matter of time before I interviewed you?
Yes, you did. He called it the pretty eyes. He said,
You have the Bambi eyes.
The Bambi eyes,
It's
that's what he
because
said.
you. Here's the thing. I've talked with your teammates about you, and I've said, listen, dude, when I heard you were doing combat jiu-jitsu, you got a nice looking face, kid. So like, I thought, what are you doing?
It up a little bit, right?
Like, listen, what's
I get that a lot. That's why I grew out the scruffy beard. See if I'm less pretty with
So
that.
I'm like, what's the Disney prince over here? I was like, what's the Disney prince over here doing over there?
Yeah.
But you have people like Kevin, you have all these other people who vouch for you, and they say, no, dude, he's a grinder, man. Don't let that kind of get underneath and trick you. So tell me a little bit about today. Let's start with this. How did you get called for this competition?
Well, I compete pretty often at 185 for sure. That's my natural weight class, and sub only is my favorite scene. I met Boogeyman a couple times. Been in a lot of the 10th Planet Ran tournaments. So when he reached out to me and invited me, it was a no-brainer. Let's go to San Diego, baby. Let's do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you got the call. Like, how far out was that?
A few months ago, actually. I think he might have hit me up about June or so. So I knew weeks in ahead. You know, I even joked around. I'm like, all right, I got like a 19-week camp. So I was pretty aware that I would be coming out here, and I'd be ready for this format for sure. The bracket didn't really change too much, so I figured who I'd be facing.
Well, that's impressive, dude. So let's talk a little bit about your day. Let's start at the very beginning, man. You were starting off, I believe you had a heel hook to begin with, correct?
Yes, I had entry to the 411 and a heel hook finish. So that was a quick match. Couldn't have gone any better.
Hey, man, that's a great way to start the day because, again, we know this is a grind. We know this is going to be a long day. And, again, you're somebody who trains and you're used to being in there. You have that experience from doing combat jiu-jitsu. You've been in the game. You know what it's like to be in there, so you know it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Then let's talk a little bit about what we go into next. So tell me through your second match.
Second match, I had a strong kid. I knew he had a long match before mine, and I had a shorter one, so I wanted to start pretty strong. Sat to my guard, and I was able to wrap up a triangle pretty quickly. You know, I hit my I do a lot of leg locks, and a lot of my game has turned into back attacks as I've progressed through the ranks. But coming up, white, blue, purple, and even brown, I was all triangle, hip bump to triangle. So I kind of went back to that. Felt good.
It looked really, really solid. I want to go into your third match because this is the one that I was most excited about just on paper. The thought of you and Chambers, that had an appeal to it. That's, if you look at a number of different places, that's top of the card kind of attraction. So tell me a little bit about that. And did it go to the way you were expecting it to go?
First, I couldn't agree more. I knew, like I said earlier, I figured he was one of the people I'd be facing. I'm sure if you asked him, he would say the same about me. So it was kind of like every time he'd win and I'd win, we were kind of like, I'll see you in a couple matches, you know. He was tough, man. You know, it's never my idea. You know, nobody wants to roll 10 minutes, and I think we rolled like 18 minutes. So it's not my ideal method of victory, but you know, when you get two really good guys and it gets to that, I was confident going in. I knew my back control and escapes would be tough to deal with for sure.
Well, it's also, I mean, when you really look at it, you have this great passing style. And one of the things I appreciate is you're able to kind of bring what would look as a traditional passing style into somebody who has a very creative guard.
Yes.
And so when you looked at that, I think the thing that people can get very easily tripped up on is, oh, okay, well, it's easy to pass. I mean, he's really good at passing. Or with Chambers, you look, oh, man, he's so deadly from his back. This should be over, done and wrap in just a few seconds. And what it became is a very tense match between the two of you.
It's one of those great guard passing, and even though he never really swept or submitted and I never got the pass, what people might not notice, but people that train would notice are the little battles, the frames, the underhooks, the hip switches, the yanking my leg out. So he would win a little battles, I would win a little battles, he'd retreat, I'd retreat, and I had fun, man. I'm sure me and him, we're active. We're gonna roll again at some point.
Oh, absolutely. And
it was a war with him. So.
And it's one of the things that I appreciate about the way that you do pass, and I want to pay you a compliment. And we say this on the commentary, which was you don't just kind of maneuver into a transition when you're passing. You almost, as you're making a really solid transition between going back and forth, you end up with this staple almost automatically. And that comes as a result, I know, of just years of drilling that and drilling that and drilling that. But it looks beautiful each time you did it. So even though I saw Kyle was like able to kind of like stop it and maybe you weren't fully passing, it's just that consistency of like, you look at it and you go, man, the repetition doesn't lie here, you know?
A lot of credit to his guard because I passed a lot of people. I passed a lot of people. He had a really good way of rolling up. Man, I think I felt like his left leg like come around and almost touch my hip. I was like, damn, he's long, you know. So I had to bail on one of those, but very tactical match, you know. Yeah, I can't, you know, great match with him for sure. Very, very strong guard from him.
All right, let's talk about your finals match, because I've been to these things a few times, if not all of them. I don't think I've seen a crowd explode for a human being.
From San Diego, right?
There's that.
Yeah.
But it seemed to have a little bit of built-up intrigue.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me your interpretation. When you see Kevin's on the other side of this, what makes you of what he was doing before or leading up to this?
I think it was, you know, he had a little bit of arrogance to him during his matches, you know. I think kind of people weren't really buying into it. And I'm not too sure, you know. I was so focused on my own matches and seeing the little things going on in the match that I couldn't necessarily tell what the crowd was picking up on that they liked or disliked. But man, I could feel it and hear it during the match. I was like, wow, they're really rooting for me.
It was palpable. I mean,
it was awesome. It was great energy to feel. Without a doubt, it was giving me more push, you know. Not that I felt like at all like I was, you know, getting tired or anything, but that's probably one of the first times I've stole the crowd, you know. So it was a good feeling. It was cool. Glad I could put it on.
I mean, to be honest, it's a weird situation when you're
definitely.
the opponent
Yeah.
because you have this guy who's becoming a heel live time in front of your eyes,
exactly.
and then you go, oh, and it's easy to get sucked into that. But then you go, oh, right, me. Oh, yeah, I'm going against it.
Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up, you know. But I think I don't know. I don't really buy into that. I don't think I think most of his antics kind of ended up until our match. I think he had a couple little things, you know, like rubbing the bell and walking away. But I don't play into those things, you know. So it was fun though. It was cool.
I mean, I know Kevin.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's got some nonsense about him. And, you know, but he is entertaining. So there is an element of
definitely
that crowd was very into how it was going to end, even if they weren't necessarily on his side. And so it made things interesting. So you definitely had a crowd full of people when they've been there for what's been, maybe about 20, 30 matches or so. And yet I've never seen in all the years everybody get up and cheer in such a way. So talk to me about, I think the thing that was happening, I want to talk first about the match and then we'll go into overtime. What was the biggest thing that you were learning in terms of the match as it was going on?
Patience, for sure. Patience. You know, he was really strong, really strong. My forearms were still really exhausted from the match with Chambers. So I knew I wanted to start slow, and he was strong and explosive, but not necessarily looking for a finish right away. And I knew he was tired too. So I knew I would just kind of weather the storm. He was doing a lot of passing and mounting, and I just kept my frames right. And right about, you know, the half-minute mark, I knew I could start picking it up. But like you said, I could feel the crowd starting to cheer, and I was like, man, they're really disliking him for a reason, and they're really cheering for me for a reason. So it was. And then when we get into the overtime, I felt very confident on the back, very confident. Again, I don't want to go to the back. You know, nobody wants to roll 10 minutes, but I knew if I could start on his back, it was a matter of time before I got to finish.
The thing that I saw that made the difference was there was no spiking. There was no throwing a person. And I think who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Kevin sometimes has selective memory in terms of what he's like, oh, I didn't know you couldn't do that. The smother was like, we went over that. But the interesting thing about that is that he stood up, and because he couldn't spike you, there was an element of, okay, how do I go about escaping this when you're so firmly backpacked onto him?
Exactly.
What was going through your mind as you were kind of midair and trying to get the submission, but having that kind of obstacle to go through?
Keeping my body triangle tight for sure. Even though it made my movement more difficult when you can't spike and I have two double underhooks, I feel like the person escaping needs to get their back to the mat to escape. And by standing, you really can't do that. He couldn't shake me off. So it was just hang on. It was kind of a weird angle. I was like almost slipping off, and then I'd try to climb back on. So I didn't feel like I could get the choke, but I caught both of us like looking over at the clock a couple times, and he wasn't doing anything. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do anything. You got to get me off, you know? So wait till we switch times.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I was concerned about your arms. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, I
mean,
was good. Actually,
it's not just that match. I mean, even in overtimes, in earlier part of the day.
Everybody wanted to armbar my left arm today. Nobody picked the right arm. You know, I'm like, come on, man. I'm not left-handed, you know? But, no, it was good. You know, a couple of them were real tight grips. But, But I was well prepared. None of the armbar's were close or anything like that. And if they had they picked back, I knew I was going to get out. In fact, I think I did with Kevin one of the times pretty quickly. Yeah. So I was ready, man. Whatever they picked.
Very, very there. Now let's talk about, as you get to the last couple periods of overtime, you get into the end of the second period of overtime. Now you know it's really coming down to the wire. Mm-hmm. You hear the crowd chant. I have to ask this because it did look this way. It looked like the minute they were starting to like really get into it, it maybe gave you the last little moment, like a Rocky buildup, to be like, I got to face crush this guy. For sure. Is that what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, regardless, I was setting it up, and after the first overtime, I knew what I had to do the second time around. I knew what kind of hand fighting tactics would work, which ones I missed, and it kind of worked both ways. I could feel him kind of almost feeling the crowd just not cheering for him, and I kind of felt less explosiveness and less like drive from him. I may be wrong, you know, or maybe I just felt really more empowered.
Just being honest with what you interpret.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. So, the crowd was great, but around the second round of the overtime, I knew what I had to do to get the finish. So, but for a split second there, I was like, oh no, it's only the second one. Oh, I gotta go again. I'm like, fuck, he's gonna pick armbar.
And not the other arm.
And not the other arm. Yeah. I was like, well, which arm? Left one again.
I mean, it was truly a fun display, and I think that, you know, when you did secure the choke, it was one of those things. It was really well done. I think it was a great read from where you were to where you knew you needed to be. Mm-hmm. And so that was fun. And then, of course, you escape. What's the first thing that goes through your mind once you realize you won the whole thing?
I'm not surprised, you know. I'm glad the pressure's off because, you know, no anxiety, no nerves, but you do feel the pressure, especially traveling. You know, I'm not at home, and I did invest in coming out here and my training and everything. So I knew I had won, but it was kind of a culmination of everything I worked. You know, nothing had I submitted him in 30 seconds, I would have been maybe like, but you know, but having worked so much and being so confident in overtime, and then it playing out like that with a submission as opposed to not submitting Kyle, I was not surprised.
You truly have the best hero's journey arc to end on. You know what I mean? Like you get there and you go, yeah, I earned that. That was dope.
Hard fought,
you know?
Man. Hard fought. So it makes.
What does the celebration look like for you?
We are going to go out to downtown San Diego. First time in San Diego. My buddy Gorilla over here, he lives here, so he's going to take care of us and go out somewhere. Fortunately, I think they close at 2 a.m. here, so we'll get out there. And
I've heard many a thing about you and your partying ways, so I'm very sorry. We here in California cannot give you the full 4 a.m.
No, we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun.
All right. Again,
drink a lot of water for sure, and eat some food. Water and food for sure.
What's gonna happen? I'm just saying, I know how much body fat you got right now, kid. So you're not a guy who looks like you can take a lot of drink because, you know.
No, it'll be fun.
You're gonna be one of those.
I'm gonna sleep though. The travel took it out of me yesterday. Awesome. So it was it'll be fun. I'll be out here till Tuesday. So if anybody wants to get some training or anything, let me know.
What a nice guy to be able to invite people in like that. I do have to ask this though. Yep. You do know what the other prize is. Obviously, cash is good, and all your friends are gonna try and make you buy all the things. But finishers.
Yes.
You got that coming up. How excited are you to be on the Finishers 10 card?
Very excited, man. I won their first Absolute a couple years ago. Had some really tough matches where I submitted everybody to an overtime. So I'm excited for that. I can't wait. I love Zach Maslany and those guys, so I'm excited to have them, you know, fly me out and hopefully repeat the wins again for sure. Excited to check out that bracket.
Hey, man, it's going to be a great time. And, you know, I always love the fact when, you know, the way that this all works is you win this, you get the opportunity to go there. Everybody gets a little bit of shine. And I love this tournament. I love Ultimate Mat Warriors. And I was so happy because, like I said, man, I don't force interviews. I just have a feeling. Well, when I look at somebody like you, I go, yeah, I haven't interviewed you yet. But it's only a matter of time, dude. And I was very excited to see when you made it to the finals because I said, you know what? I know you, I know Kevin. I can easily interview either one of you, and that would be just as good to me. But I think it's always great to capture those moments when you hear a crowd like that. So forever, you're going to have that moment where, like you said, you're like, I won the crowd?
Yeah, I know. It was cool. You know, I thought for sure they may not have been cheering for me because it kind of was like a very pro 10th Planet crowd. Maybe they were cheering against me, Kyle. I was like, hey, I'm a good dude. You know, I just wanted to win. I came out to win too.
Well, here's what happens and this is like the pro con of having a true Kevin Crane, which is like you get the people that are so invested in it that you hear people on the side go, yes,
Yeah.
yes, he deserved that, you know. And then on the other side, I'm like, well, why are you that invested?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that dude got you invested by being the heel. So it's kind of like, I'm like, listen,
it was a fun match. You know, I actually didn't dislike any of his antics at all. I thought he was a cool dude. You know, shook his hand before and after, and
you know, he came up to you afterwards, and
it made for a great match. You know, so. Yeah, no complaints, man. I'm very excited. Very excited to be getting interviewed by you.
Oh, God, please. I'm the least big prize you're going to win, my man. But I will say this. Where can people find you on the social media if they're looking for seminars? You do seminars? You do
seminars,
all the privates, all the good stuff?
Yes, sir. Dan Martinez on Facebook, Dan Martinez Jitsu on Instagram. Add me, tag me, share me, whatever. Let's do it.
Let's hold on. Let's work on the branding here. When he says share him, he means share his work.
Yeah, share my work.
You know what I
share
mean?
my work, my name, my tag, all of that
One
stuff.
version of that sounds like you're a cheap hooker, and one version of that sounds like you're a reputable athlete.
Maybe? No.
Nope. You've already got something nice here. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Dan Martinez. A big congratulations. Your ultimate Mat Warriors 5 winner and future Finishers 10 competitor. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll keep you locked here for more information.